Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Detention, where we ask smart and talented people in the endurance world to show us the error of our ways. I'm Chris Bagg, and this week we are talking with Miriam Weiskind, an ultrarunner and Pizzaiola in Brooklyn, New York. Since quarantine began last year, Miriam has been baking pizzas out of her Park Slope apartment and giving free pies to first responders, people who have lost their jobs over the past 12 months, and generally just anybody having a tough time.
Miriam grew up playing soccer in Dayton, Ohio, and moved to New York to pursue a career in graphic design. As a lifelong pizza enthusiast, she threw herself into the city's vibrant slice scene. She began leading pizza tours around the city and took a job as a pizzaiola at Polly G's in Greenpoint. Miriam is also an avid ultrarunner and has competed in races around the world, including Quest for Crest, Orcas Island, 50K, Backcountry Rise, Trans Rockies, and Trans Alpine runs. Miriam, welcome to Detention.
Hello. It's nice to meet you guys.
That's awesome. I've never heard Slice to meet you. That's great.
So first question we always ask, have you ever been in detention before, Miriam?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I was always in detention as a kid. Always in detention.
Tell us more about that. What were you in detention for?
So when I was in kindergarten, I was held back twice, and I was a kid that had an issue. Like I'd run around and pull other kids' pants down because that was funny to look at people's butt. So I definitely started off detention in my first year of kindergarten, and then my parents decided to hold me back for a second time, held me back so that I went into kindergarten a second time, and I grew up a little bit, but I constantly was put in detention just for like misbehaving or playing pranks on people, tying all the shoelaces together, the kids' shoes that were in the cubby holes, or hiding everyone's books. So, I was always like a kind of a rebel as a child, and still am as an adult.
We are so happy to hear that because we get a lot of very goody two-shoes triathletes on here who are like, I've never really done anything wrong before. And you're like, come on.
You must have done something.
I feel like you have, it's like a coming of age kind of thing where, unless you've spent an hour writing sentences repeating your offense, I will not listen to Aerosmith while sitting in class. And over and over again, like I had my little cassette player, and I would borrow my sister's cassette tapes. I don't think until you've done that, everyone's got to go through detention. That's where I really learned really good cursive, is just detention. And that was home detention. So
must have been Aerosmith Pump, right?
Yeah. No, it's actually Janie's got a gun. Whole world come undone.
Yeah, okay. See?
You don't want me to sing. You don't want me to sing. Of course it's still there.
So this past year has obviously been, a tough one for everybody. This it resulted in what Molly and I put together in terms of like the endurance school and this show and everything like that. Tell us a little bit more about what the past year has made possible for you. Like, what has it made room for that you have created?
Definitely a lot of running and pizza. Those are basically like if you were to split me down the middle, it's running and pizza. So in New York City, we were put on lockdown, so to speak, and told like only to leave, at the very most, like try not to leave more than once a week, and we had a curfew. So I was kind of a rule breaker, and I would leave the apartment very early in the morning because there was nobody on the streets. And I stopped going into the park because there were so many people in the park without masks. It was just scary. So I took to the city streets and really got lost around the city, and would be up as early as 5:30 in the morning running around. And then, that was the one way I dealt with like just feeling very isolated. And then because I had lost all my pizza jobs, then I started baking pizza for free at people in my building. And then this thing was born, like this speakeasy pizzeria in a neighborhood where there's pretty much a pizzeria on every block. Except I'm the one everyone's like, where's that pizza from? And everyone's like, oh, that second floor in that building. But yeah, I mean, that's like, so my life has pretty much been pizza and running since last March. And now like finally we're able to do some racing again, which is great. I did a race about 2 weeks ago. It was a virtual race, but it was, it was a ton of fun. And then of course I ate pizza after.
You're living the perfect life.
Yeah, right. 50 to 80 miles a week of running and only like 3 pizzas a week.
That's very conservative, Miriam. I'm really impressed. I eat that many pizzas a week and I'm not running nearly that much. So I think a lot of people would be surprised to know, though, although I do know a little bit more than most folks on this topic, having been friends with you for quite some time, is that you grew up in Dayton, and Ohio is not necessarily considered to be like a pizza hotspot in the United States. Where did your love of pizza come from?
So the joke goes is that when I was born, my mom was in labor for so long that the dad and the doctor were eating pizza. And so like literally when I was born, like, oh yeah, we popped her right into a pizza pan. So I've always loved pizza. And it wasn't until I did an interview the other day that I realized that pizza was something that my family always bonded over. Like if we behaved, then on Saturday nights, I'd be chasing and catching butterflies, or not butterflies, but lightning bugs all night. And then we'd all come home and eat pizza together. And generally in my family, it was like Little Caesars, or it wasn't any of the local pizza. But then whenever I would go home to visit my parents after I moved to New York, the first thing we'd do is my dad would pick us up from the airport and we'd go meet my mom at Marion's Pizza. So like, and we always did that. So now I'm like, I can't go home. So I actually have not had Marion's in probably a year or so, and it's killing me because it's like one of my favorite pizzas. They do ship it frozen, but I just haven't had it shipped here yet. But it's not the same. But like we've always bonded over pizza, and now my sister will swear by saying like I only eat my sister's pizza. And I'm like, then that means that you're not really eating pizza often at all anymore. And like she'll shamefully try to join my live stream on Instagram, and I'll be like, only if it's pizza related. So if you want to do a frozen pizza and explain to everybody, then fine. But no, we're not listening to you make tofu burritos. Nobody wants to hear about tofu burritos on a pizza live stream.
Yeah, that's an audience miss right there. That is a mismatch. Maybe tell us about like, I know a lot of people in the food world can remember that first like transcendent whatever that they had, where they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Was there like one particular pizza that like shaped the rest of your life, or is it just like those like pizzas with family and things like that?
Oh, I mean, I distinctly remember in 1984 eating this thing called microwave pizza. And it was literally called microwave pizza. Like, had this pretty package, even had that silver thing in there that you bake the pizza, you nuke the pizza on a microwave. And so my entire life, I'm like, I've been searching for this pizza. And then it wasn't until like 3 years ago, I went bowling in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And my friends were like, we're going to order pizza. And I'm like, oh, how could you do such a thing? I'm like, there are so many good pizzerias that would deliver here. And like, it is what it is. And this is Melody Lane. So you guys probably know about it. But I tasted the pizza and I like, my knees almost buckled from underneath me because like, this is microwave pizza from 1984. And like, I called Scott Wiener with Scott's Pizza Tours. So I did pizza tours with him. I was like, I just found the pizza that my love first started with. And it's frozen from Cisco in a bowling alley in like a very far off part of Brooklyn. But like, so that's like my first memory of it. But then, as you go through time, like, there's high school pizza, there's college pizza, I just moved to New York. I don't know what anything is good, but I'm just going to eat Ray's because everyone says eat Ray's. And then there was when I was actually pushed into, or when I was thrust into the world of pizza, and there are the pizzerias that I like really love that I hold close to my heart. So yeah, so many. I've probably eaten at a couple thousand pizzerias in my lifetime.
I love that that microwave pizza was like the slice that launched like 10,000 more slices.
Yeah. Yes.
So now that your pizza tastes have developed, though, what, in your opinion, makes the perfect slice of pizza?
I would say it's a combination of flavor and ambiance, or like the origin of it. So, I'll tell people there's a place in Park Slope, Brooklyn called Luigi's, and it's like this iconic New York cheese slice of pizza. But like, a huge part of what makes it great is the owner of that pizzeria named Gio. You walk in there and it's like, this place is like so divey. it's been there since 73, and I'm pretty sure they've only recently updated the walls. But like the love that you experience when you go in there and you're like, here's your slice on a plate with a half piece of wax paper. It's a little bit cheaper. If you get a drink, there's no ice because it costs money. We want to put more money towards the pizza ingredients. So like, and it's in a Wetzel pretzel cup that's spelled wrong because it's a misprint. But like, there are all these things about that pizzeria that make it good. But the thing is, like, the quality of that slice of pizza, like he puts the absolute best ingredients into it, and it just represents everything about New York. I mean, that's one of those places that I love. I mean, I could go on and list so many of them, but that's like what I always like comes to my mind.
You just brought up something that I remember from living in New York is that there's like 10 different kinds of pizzas just within New York itself. If you could, like, take us on a quick tour of like the different types of pizzas that one might encounter. I don't know, just in like the eastern half of the U.S.
Okay, so, well, I mean, so you guys know I worked with Scott Wiener. I did Scott's Pizza Tours for 8 years. So my job was to take tourists and locals alike around and teach them a complete history of the evolution of pizza from Europe to North America. And New York City is what we really consider, like, it is the pizza capital of the world. That's how and I feel so strongly about that because we have every style here, except Molly. I think the only one that's not here is St. Louis. St. Louis
It's
pies.
not very good.
Y'all keep your Provel. I'm good. I don't want any of the Provel. We're good.
And there is actually a St. Louis style pizzeria in Brooklyn, just for the record.
Where? Which one?
I'll email you about it. I'll email you.
Okay. Let me know. I want to go just have it just to say I've had it, but like it's the only style I'm not like in love with.
Yeah, I apologize in advance.
It's okay. But so the thing is, so in New York, you have coal-fired pizza. That was our very first style of pizza. So I'm like, all right, if we're gonna go on a tour, Lombardi's is one of the first places you should go. And people are like, oh, locals like it's a tourist trap. I'm like, not for somebody who loves pizza because it represents the start of pizza. And, Lombardi wasn't the first pizza baker in the United States, but he was the group of people that were trained to bake pizza at 53 Spring Street and later opens up and moves down to Mulberry Street. So, but I always say, like, that's a great place to go. And then, we have New York style. So there's New York style is pre-1940, it's all coal fired. After the 1940s, it's out of a gas deck oven. So I tell people, like, a really great place to go for a deck oven slice is going to be Joe's on Carmine, and I'm really particular about that place in the city. I only eat the pizza there between the hours of 10 and 5 because the guys who bake it at night are totally different. The oven has been on all day, so it does die down, and it's just not the same. But that's that classic, like, oversized slice of cheese pizza that you fold and you eat it on the go. The reason why we eat pizza on the go in New York, or the reason they call it New York style, is because we're eating the pizza while we're walking and it's on a plate. We never stop. So it's like we walk into a slice shop, we walk out, and where, in different places. And then around the United States, you drive up to a pizzeria, order your pizza, and you take the leftovers in a box home. But New Yorkers, we walk, we talk, and we eat pizza holding hopefully 2 hands. You have 2 slices, and that's how we roll. Unless you're John Travolta, then you just stack both of them and go in tip first. That sounded bad.
It's all good. This is a show for grown-ups.
But so those 2 styles, and then also there's wood-fired pizza. Wood-fired pizza is the youngest style pizza in New York. We probably had it like 35, 40 years here, but that represents the first style pizza that was ever invented because that's what we had in Greece and we had in Italy and the Middle East. It's just basically it's if you really break it down, it's pita bread with toppings. With the Italians, we make it into a pizza. But we didn't have those wood-fired burning ovens here yet. We had coal-fired ovens. So if like you go through, I always tell people, go to the Tenement Museum to really learn the history of how we all emigrated here to New York. And those were the first types of ovens we were using to heat the homes and to bake pizza. So I always have a piece of coal. Hold on, here we go. I always say, like, this is my diamond ring. I don't know if you can see that. All right. I mean, it would look pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a $10 million diamond right here. But this is anthracite coal. This is what bakes really good pizza. So, yeah, I always have this laying around. Everyone's like, why do you coal? And I'm like, I'm the only girl that would ever want to stocking full of coal during Christmas. It's like this.
It's an appropriate gift for the recipient.
Right? Right. So I don't need a diamond. I just need anthracite coal. That's all I need.
So a lot of the folks that you mentioned who are kind of like the founders of pizza in New York City, and a lot of the people even who I remember as recently as I lived there, who worked in kitchens and who, who were the people making the pizza, a lot of those folks are men. What does it mean to you to be a woman in the pizza business in New York?
Oh, let me just
Wow.
Women in pizza. I'm wearing that shirt for just tonight.
Yes.
Okay, right? Yes. What does it mean to be a woman in pizza? Well, we represent single digit percentage of the people that are in the industry. So in New York City, you have so few women that own pizzerias. Like off the top of my head, like the daughter Roberto from Caste, his daughter Georgia now owns Don Antonio in Midtown. You have Nicole Russell out on the Rockaways who owns Last Dragon Pizza, one of my favorite movies. She makes really fun combination pizzas out of her home like me. And then on John's of Elmhurst in Queens is owned by a mother-daughter duo. I believe they're 52 years old. And they also have one of the most perfect like cheese slices of pizza. But there's so few pizzerias that are owned and operated by women. And I want to be a person that helps to break that barrier a bit. And I've definitely faced my own adversity trying to get into the industry and people helping me out, that I was like, I'm just going to figure all this out for myself. And then I did. And then like once things started falling in place, then people started coming around and helping me out a bit more. But like, I don't think people understand like how difficult it is. So like when I asked different pizzeria owners, like, can I come bake? Paulie G was the first one to say, when can you start? And so he's one of the pizzeria owners that really wanted to help women give them the opportunity to bake in the space. And he's like, you just don't see women baking that often. Like we're put at the front to seat people, or we're in the back kitchen doing pastries. But like when are like you tending an oven that's over 1,000 degrees, baking 4 pies at a time that each take like a minute and a half? Like it's insane.
So we want to hear a little bit about your current project. You already alluded it to a little bit, a lot of pizza baking, a lot of running, but you've been doing donation-only pies for a whole bunch of people on the front lines of the pandemic. Could you just tell us a little bit about what your weekly process is like? How many pies are you making? How are you distributing them? Just give us like a walkthrough of what your week looks like and who you're giving the pies to.
All right. So each week I bake on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the way that it started out is I was originally just baking free pizza for people in my building. And I put up a clipboard with a menu. And if people wanted to donate something, they could. But there was also a box that just said like, hey, like baking pizza makes me really happy. Like I'd really like to bake pizza for you. So if you'd like a warm free meal, go right ahead and knock on my door. So I started baking pizza for those people. And then some friends were like, well, can we get some pizza? I was like, sure. And then someone's like, well, can I pay a pie forward for like the elderly woman on the first floor? So, you could at least cover the cost of your supplies and her pizza. So, that it's not like eating into the money. Because at the time I wasn't able to collect unemployment. So I had zero income coming in. So also the incentive at the beginning was like trying to bring in a little bit of income or bring in some money to make ends meet. My unemployment didn't kick in until May. So I went from February all the way till May with $0 coming in for income. But I kept it donation based, and I'm like, donate whatever you want. And it quickly manifested into this thing where I was baking 4 pies a night, 16. Somebody sent me a pan, and I started, actually, wait, I think I have one of these pans. I do. I need to show you guys this pan. So somebody sent me this like weird pan, and it's from Lloyd. And I was like, well, I guess I can figure out how to make Sicilian in this. And then I discovered like I made this like, because it's so narrow, I made a double-edged Sicilian slice of pizza. And then I named it the Michael Jordan pie. I was like, oh, how can I make something go viral and name it after my favorite basketball player? Because everybody at the time was watching this documentary. But this pie was like 23 inches in diameter, or total dimension. So 23 hours to make, and it was red on top. So I'm like, all right, so it's the Michael Jordan pie. And now the Michael Jordan pie is like sold out to almost April. I'm like, people love it. I don't know. But every pie is hand mixed in small batch. So you really taste the difference. It's also a butter crust. But now, like, at first there was like, I remember I would text people or DM people on Instagram, like, hey, I need to sell these pies. Do you want any pizza? And now it's like, they'll order their pizza and that same night, they're like, can we reorder? But like for 3 more or 4 more nights. So I'm like, yeah. So I've gotten to the point where after the Vice documentary that came out, I have a couple hundred DMs in my inbox of orders that I'm like slowly getting to. And I told people, I'm like, I'm sorry, it's been 2 weeks since you sent me a message, but like, there's a lot of other people in line with you, and I promise I'll get pizza to you. So I'm actually in the process of like getting into a commercial space so I can up my quantity. But even when I open my own storefront someday, it's going to be limited number pies because, you know, I'm hand mixing them and I want them to be made with lots of love.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I run early in the morning before I start all of my dough making, and then I'm generally doing, so I'll be up at like 6 in the morning to run, and then I am doing dough prep from anywhere from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. social media stuff during the day, managing everything, orders, and then my baking is from 3 to 7.
So when you say hand mixing, I believe, and I'm not totally sure, that you are doing all of the kneading of the dough yourself.
Yeah.
Oof. That's amazing.
I have a mixer. Somebody like loaned me a mixer. I have like a Sun 10 mixer in here, which is this really good spiral mixer. And he's like, have you used it? You've had it for 3 months. I was like, no. And then I told my dad, I was like, my hand keeps going numb. And he's like, maybe it's carpal tunnel. I go, I don't think it's carpal tunnel. I think it's like rhinoids because it runs in my family. And so my dad's solution is like, just use your left hand to make dough. And I'm like, okay, that's going to work. Right, left, or left, right, left, right. Okay, so I'm actually trying to get better at using my left hand to see if my dad is actually right. That's how we are in my family. Like, can I prove my dad wrong that it's not carpal tunnel, that it's just like, it's rhinoid? So I don't know, but I've been hand mixing everything. Eventually I am going to have to learn how to mix with a mixer, but you know, it has to be that same quality. I want it to still be like magically crustastic.
So my question is the same as the one that we have in chat, which is about that crust. Tell me more about what a butter crust is. I need to know more about that.
Oh, so are you ready? I'm using Kerrygold butter. The best. I know, right? It's Irish. So I know. right. That's my nod to all the Irish people out there.
Thank you,
Molly. So, but what I do is I use Kerrygold butter to grease my pan, and then I have other little tricks up my sleeve. But I create a butter crust Sicilian pizza, so that, like, when you're biting into it, it's not terribly oily, but it's buttery good. And then the entire like, I also like completely rim this whole pan with New York State sharp cheddar cheese, so that when it cooks, it caramelizes around the entire edge. And that's inspired by Detroit pizza, but I'm sticking it on a New York Sicilian. Like, if you really want to get into different styles of pizza, like Detroit versus New York Sicilian versus Italian Sicilian, they're all so different.
You are doing really important work, and I'm so excited about that.
All right. Making the world a better place, one pie or one slice at a time.
It's amazing.
How do you deliver them? Do people come to your apartment and pick them up?
Yeah, it's pickup only. So they all get a time slot and a day. It's pre-order only, so I know that it's guaranteed. And then I have some, like, I do tell people, like, their cancellations. So if they have their alert turned on, they can get that last minute cancellation. Like, they'll find out in the morning, I'll post it and it's gone like minutes. Mm-hmm. So especially for the MJs, like, those are like, you know, because there's a huge long wait list for that. But I'm like, oh, when there's a cancellation, like, I'm like, it's all yours. But yeah, I mean, the dough itself for my regular pizza, it takes 3 days to make those pizzas. Mm-hmm. So, because it's a 3-day ferment, so they're not getting a traditional, like, New York slice shop kind of pie. They're getting something that is incredibly flavorful and very, very well planned and designed for them.
What is the farthest somebody has come to pick up one of your pies?
Connecticut.
Nice.
I have
Yes.
someone drive in from Fairfield, Connecticut every other month. Actually, an old triathlon friend of mine, AC. So she drives in with her kids, and they put banners on the car before, like pizza party bus, which is awesome. But they'll drive in and she gives her kids a pizza party. I have people that drive in from Long Island, and it actually got to the point where, you know, people were coming in from different parts, and I had an unofficial open table. And I remember like the New York Times and Munchie was like, you're on open table. I'm like, no, I'm not really on open table. The joke is it's a TV stand and a folding chair. Like, and so I wound up like, it became this thing people were requesting. And I love it because like there's serious outdoor dining, and then there's my TV stand and a folding chair. And they have it trade like they're in a pizzeria, and there's the shakers and there's the plates, and people are like, where is this pizzeria? And I'm like, so yeah, once it's warmer out, I'll put the TV stand back out there for reservation only. For one person gets it a night, and that's it. But they pick up, and then there's a, you know, I have them spaced apart, and that's just because like with COVID, I want to be very safe. Like they come up to Zora, and I hand them the pizza, and then they go. Like, or they'll do their selfie, or like whatever Instagram thing they want to do to post. But and then I have just like, you know, just to be safe.
Here's your chance to throw some shade on New Haven pizzerias.
I love it. What are you talking about? Like Sally's, even though Sally's ownership changed and it's just not the same. New Haven, I feel like I have a book on New Haven like right here.
Well, just because you're getting some Connecticut people to come on down, so you know you're winning the pizza war.
Yeah, come on, look. Does it surprise you? Of course, I have a history of New Haven pizza in my apartment. I also have one for. Wait a second. Just to show you guys how diverse my pizza book collection is, I also have Columbus, Ohio pizza in there. So yeah, I mean, New Haven pizza, listen, it's different. It's not like New York pizza. It's amazing, and I don't have any beef against it. I mean, as we discussed earlier in the podcast, the only beef I have is the Provel.
You haven't had it yet, and it is disgusting.
I had not in Brooklyn, but I definitely had it from St. Louis, and I'm just like, honestly, it's the only pizza I won't take home left over.
It's bad. It's really bad. No, you're right. You're right. I'm not going to fight you on that.
And for those of you guys so Provel is this block cheese. And, you know, different parts of the country, we have different types of cheese we use. So Provel is cheddar, Swiss, and provolone all like mushed into a block. And so like, wait, do I have those three cheeses wrong?
So technically it's a cheese product. It's not it's not a cheese.
It's cheap.
A cheese product. Okay. It's a cheese. It's not I don't even know if it has dairy in it. I think it's oil. I think it's 100% oil.
Well, like, you know when your mom used to make you that grilled cheese sandwich with American cheese, and when it's hot and you bite it and it gets stuck to the roof of your mouth, and you're like, I think it's just like a tactic for parents to get their kids to stop talking. Mm-hmm. But give them this grilled cheese. Like, that's what biting that pizza is like. You take a bite and you're like, and you're at the table and you're just uncomfortably doing this. How are you? Hold on.
You're describing my childhood.
Wash down whatever I just put in my mouth. But there's always a lot of oregano on it, so they give it a lot of flavor. But it's cracker thin. It's like, let me give you a slice of pizza that's as thin as your paper plate.
It's pasta on a matzah. That's the description of it.
I mean, listen, Tony Geminani in San Francisco, he's got Tony's Napolitano. Like, he does Provel pizza. He does it really well. He might be the only person I trust to feed it to me. The only person. And it's in San Francisco.
Speedy Romeo's. That's the name of the place that sells St. Louis style pizza in New York. Go there. They have provolone.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
But they're not doing. Is he doing it cracker style? Like
they have a St. Louis pie. Yeah, with Provel. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Not on my pizzeria. Not on my pizza. I'll put Skyline chili on my pizza before I put Provel on it. Yeah. Oh, so I do these things called mystery pies where I do whatever I want on a pizza. So, and they just have to deal with it. So I do, I have Skyline chili that's just waiting. I'm going to do put the chili on and just pile up the cheddar cheese mile high. And I'm like, here's your pizza. In fact, the box will have to be served open face. Open. Cause like, you're not going to be able to shut the box on it. Google Skyline Chili if you've never seen it, and you're like, on pizza? And I'm like, yeah.
I'm upset.
We're going to slowly start making a segue towards endurance events because I think we could just happily talk pizza for the rest of the night. But
I'm
you
gonna
were
hydrate.
the five-time champion of the New York City Pizza Run. Tell us a little bit about this event.
Okay, so it's probably, I'm now retired, but it was definitely the most serious race on my calendar every year. So you run a loop around Tompkins Square Park, tiny little park. So you run a loop, and you generally have to dodge people. I mean, there's people in line for a food pantry. There's generally people who pass out on the sidewalk, and whatever random New York barriers that might get in your way. But so you sprint a loop around this park, eat a slice of pizza, sprint a loop, eat a slice of pizza, sprint a loop, eat a slice of pizza, sprint a loop. You're done. And in my case, I'm gonna eat 3 extra slices of pizza because it's good pizza. Pizza by Certé sponsored it. So, but I discovered I had like this talent, and I think I definitely attribute it to all the years I did triathlons and being very competitive in my age bracket because it's like you got to get that gel down and you got to keep going. So somehow I was able to get a slice of pizza down in under 20 seconds and still run a 6-minute mile. And my course record that I have was like just over 15 minutes. And it was like, I think it's like 2.25 or just under 2.5 mile course. Yeah. So, but and I I had tactics that I used to get it's like getting the pizza in, being able to run with it. Cause like they don't have a rule, you have to swallow it. So like you have to have it finished by the time you get to the line again. But I remember like this girl, every year there'd be like a girl who'd be like, I'm going to show this girl up in the tube socks who thinks because I'd wear like wrist warmers and a headband, and I'd look not serious at all, but I'm actually very serious. And so, the girl would eat her first slice of pizza and beat me on the first loop. And I'm like, there's no way this girl's going to win. And I stand right next to her and I'm like, let me show you how this is done. The slice goes in, I put in the water, and then I just take off. And I like generally wind up lapping them. And I was like, yeah, like, how did you do that? I'm like, I was born to run and eat pizza. But I retired after 5 years. It's just a lot of pressure. But yeah, I mean, that was the first time I got published in the Daily News. And my mom was so proud of me. And the New York Times did a video about it. And I'm like, I made the New York Times for shoving pizza in my face and running at the same time.
I have a follow-up question. Okay, so you said, I have so many follow-up questions. So you said the pizza and the water goes in at the same time. As anybody who has seen like a hot dog eating contest knows, that water is to get that bun down. So are you doing the same kind of tactic? Like the water is there to make the pizza go down a little easier, or have I misunderstood the timing?
I mean, imagine you're trying to eat like a Honey Stinger chocolate wafer bar, like with a dry mouth. Like get a little bit of liquid in there. It's going to help it go down. So never, ever should anyone take a slice of pizza and dunk it in water. I'm sorry. If you do that, you should be banned from ever eating pizza again. But what you do is you're going to put the pizza in and you take chipmunk bites. So I take chipmunk bites. So they're little tiny bites and I cheek it. So one, it's like, looks like that. And then I take a little fuel belt bottle, like a little handheld guy. Again, this is where triathlons and ultra running comes in play. Like it's key that you have these techniques for consuming food while on the go. Might be also the New York style component to it. But so then you take a couple bites, you squirt the water in, and it just helps to go down a little bit. So.
Can you run and eat at the same time, or do you have to be stationary while you're eating?
I did manage to figure out how to run while eating the pizza, which every single person on this planet would tell you never to do because it's a choking hazard. But I assume that there's likely a doctor in that race, given the crowd that it would draw, that if I needed the Heimlich, it's all good. But my experiences, with doing all the triathlons for like 10 years, like I was pretty much a pro at like running while eating. So I never, ever threw up the pizza. That's like the first question people ask me. Do you ever throw up? No. In fact, it's like you go back to that New York Times thing, you actually hear me saying on camera, this is really, while I'm racing, this is really good pizza and I'd never want to waste it. Yeah, we're going to throw it up. I'm not going to spit it out. I'm going to make sure I eat that whole slice and then eat more after the fact.
Imagine throwing up is like a DQ.
I think it is, but I'm not entirely certain. I've been retired for a while now. He might have changed. They changed the venue, and he may have changed the rules. But like, just don't waste the pizza. Like, it's just tragedy, you know?
So we've covered now your professional athletic pursuits, but I'm also really interested to talk a little bit in your amateur athletic pursuits. So you have been doing ultra races. I knew you when you were training for triathlon, but I think after I
Yeah.
left New York, you have been doing a lot of really cool ultra running and trail races. Can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to that sport and like why you find it so rewarding?
Yeah. So when I did triathlons, I remember when I did the Ironman of Lake Placid. And it's funny because Molly, I was actually with you when we finished Ironman, or we did finish the Providence 70.3. And I think you're like, oh, we could sign up for Lake Placid without waiting in line. And I'm like laying on the ground, like, I'm never doing this again. And then they're like, and there's Molly like, we can sign up for Lake Placid. And I'm like, oh, okay. I just signed up. Like, why not do an Ironman? But I think that like I was so drawn to the challenge and the difficulty of doing it, and I was also a very very strong runner. Like for me, when I did that Ironman, I was probably the only person out there that was really excited to run a marathon after that horrible swim in the beautiful Mirror Lake. And then after that really long bike ride, going 40 miles an hour down a mountain, fearing death, um, and then I'm like, okay, let's go run a marathon. Let's do 2 loops of this crazy hard. And it was actually, it is a pretty hard course. So they had those hills in there. But I just fell in love with like how hard it was, and I had the best time of my life out there. So when I was training for my second Ironman Mont Tremblant following year, I was in a horrible bike accident, had to have my shoulder rebuilt. I could only walk for 6 months, and I decided, I was like, all right, if I'm gonna go back to like anything crazy, I want to do ultra running. I want to just run in a beautiful place for a really long time. So my first big challenge was I decided to sign up for every single North Face challenge in the United States. And I'm like, I'm going to do this in a year. I'm going to do all of this in the same year. And then I contacted them. They're like, no one's ever been this crazy or dumb enough to do this, but okay. So, I was doing a bunch of 50Ks and 50 milers, and I'd never done 50 miles before. I'm like, what happens after you run a marathon? And I remember the exact moment I crossed over that barrier into 50 miles. I was like, oh, or at 50K, I was like, oh, I just did more than a marathon. This is it. This is so cool. And I was like, oh, I can keep going. My legs aren't going to fall off. But like once and then I go into the 50 milers, and I experience these like extreme highs and lows where you're like, I'm going to die. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to win everything. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh, I'm going to win everything. I'm never doing this again. When can I sign up for another one? Like you just go through like mountains of highs and lows. But that's like when I really started to fall in love with it. And I realized like for me, triathlons was about winning, like to get to Kona. And for ultra running, it was about making it to the finish line while there was still food left for the finishers. And you have good days and you have bad days, but like very rarely do you get that perfect race day. And I find that those are probably the most boring days when you don't encounter like a lot of mountainous challenges.
Tell us about one of those mountainous challenges. Tell us the story of like a moment that really leaps to mind that was a really, really tough moment in an ultra race.
So I did the backcountry ride in Mount St. Helens, and it was like call it my spirit volcano because it erupted the day before I was born. So my dad's like, yeah, when like the world knew you were coming, and it blew the top off this beautiful mountain out west, which was actually a volcano. But I was like, I want to go out west. I want to do this crazy race. And the other thing is because it's in the backcountry, it's very remote. Like the race director says to you, if there's any chance that you're going to drop, do not start this race because we have to use a helicopter to get you out. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And allegedly Bigfoot could be out here. Let's do this. So 2 miles in, I'm racing down a mountain, and they have chain link fences on the ground to help with erosion. And my foot caught it. And as I trip and I come back down, I snap my ankle. And it was the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced in my life. Like I'm seeing the light, which I thought at the time was death, but then I realized it wasn't. And I realized I was in thorns because I'd fallen to the ground. I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up. And I'm like, and I try to stand back up and then fall again into like this thorny patch. I'm like, why does God hate me right now? Somebody get me out of here. And I'm like, and I was like, Fudge, I think I just broke my ankle. But I'm like, but how broken is it? And I'm like, you know what, Weiskind, you did not come out here. You did not train all this time, come all the way out west to quit. So I was like, okay, I knew there was an aid station nearby. So I go about a mile and I come in and the people at the aid station are like, oh, you're the ankle girl. And I'm like, oh, great. I've been dubbed the ankle girl by everyone else in the race. Because at the time I was like toward the front of the pack because I was racing competitively. And they're like, do you want to drop? And I'm like, no, I didn't come out of the way. And they're like, are you sure you can go on? And I'm like, I'll figure out a way. I have another foot. So in the footing on that race is tricky because it's pumice, it's volcanic ash, dirt, rocks. So like, and as fate would have it, the way that I had to go up the volcano in the mountains out there was leaning into the mountain on the side that I had hurt. But it's like I just sucked it up, and I wound up meeting two other runners. Ironically, we all were like peeing in a patch of like flowers with bees, and like, okay, like, because you just do that. When you're on the mountain, you just drop trow and you go. But I wound up teaming up with these two girls when we did the entire race together, and it felt like an eternity out there. But now I have permanent damage in that ankle as a result of it. But I'm like really proud of the fact that I finished that race, and I would go back and do it in a heartbeat. But like when you're in the remote backcountry, there's no way to really pull you out safely. So like you're in it to finish it, not win it. Finishing it is winning it. And I got this lovely pint glass as a result of finishing it.
Down one ankle, up one pint glass. Win. So I want to hear the opposite end of that story. What's one time that you were like, this is exceptional, I feel amazing? Tell us about like a really positive experience you had with ultra racing.
When I got into stage racing, I discovered at Trans Rockies that I was a glutton for punishment, and that you were basically going 6 straight days racing anywhere from 17 miles to 20 miles. And you're not really sleeping much, but I discovered my love for like racing in the mountains. And like, I had a lot of injuries I overcame throughout that whole experience. I went out there not knowing anybody I was racing with, and I came home with a lot of friends, but like everything seemed to get better day by day as I was out on that course. And I wound up finishing the top 10. I'm like, I never imagined in a million years I could compete competitively as a female, as an ultra runner. But like, that was when I was like, okay, I can actually do this. And I went on to do their sister race, Transalpines in Europe, which was like, I mean, Trans Rockies was 20,000 total feet of elevation. Transalpines was 20,000 feet a day for 7 days straight in the Alps. So yeah, and like that one I was using when I went to Europe. I had to use hiking poles to pivot myself down the mountain on the last 2 days because both of my IT bands were impinged. But I was determined to finish that race, and I did. And I'm not permanently damaged from that anymore. Maybe up here a little bit, but like I can't wait to go back to Europe because you run through 3 countries. So, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I'd say so. Like those Trans Rockies was probably like one of my more like perfect moments. Like I did a race with North Face in Marin, and the year before I had a horrible finishing time, and I missed the food at the finish line in the dark, had no headlamp, and there were coyotes. So I mean, like you're like, oh. But the following year I came back and I shaved, I shaved almost like 3 hours off my time. And so for me, that was like having the perfect race where I'm running really fast, and people are saying, wow, you look really great. Like you're going fast. And I'm like, I just want to make it to the finish line and get some of the food. And they're like, I think you're going to make it to the finish line for the food. The things that motivate you in life, free food. And it's not even that good, but it's like, it's just the principle. Like if I run fast enough, I get to eat the finisher food.
So yeah, you're very competitive at these. I think you told us that you were 6th at Transalps and 10th at Trans Rockies. What does your training look like?
So I worked with a coach who was in Brooklyn. She relocated to Colorado out of Mountain Peak Fitness, Elizabeth Azzy. She is fantastic. My training can be anywhere. I think she tries to, I haven't done 80 miles a week with her anytime in this block, but I can go up to like 50 to 80 miles a week with her. I do. I have off days. Like I have my bike trainer I set up. I can't go to the pool right now because everything is shut down. Slash, I don't know that I want to put myself in a pool in the middle of a pandemic. That I can do safely here in New York. But typically my weekends, I'm completely on the trails. During the week, I'm on the roads, doing a lot of speed work, a lot of hill work. And then, like I had to do this past Saturday, I did a 2-hour endurance run. So she'll say, I want you to go for the 8th. And I'm like, oh, that means you want me to go for 7:30 in my head. Cause like, I'm just always pushing myself to go a lot faster. But I was like, but here's the challenge. It's only 5 degrees out. like, my bottles are gonna freeze, and I have to do a run and be able to have nutrition somehow. And you can't just go to a Starbucks anymore. Like you can just go places and get things easily. And then the next day, I was out in the mountains for 3 hours doing a trail run in the really cold weather, but trying to race a blizzard that was coming in. So get a couple thousand feet of elevation. But my weekends are long back to backs. But it's your recovery is definitely encouraged. But like this week is a little bit easier, thank goodness. But like last week, I was just like, my body hates me. Like she had me do like last week, like the other crazy thing is she had me do a 5K. She's like, I want you to go do a loop of Prospect Park, easy, and then I want you to run the second loop of Prospect Park at 5K pace. Yet everyone that's running with me is like, a 5K is only like 3.1, but we're doing like more than a 5K, and I'm like, yeah, and we're gonna go that fast and at 5K pace. And they're like, this is crazy. Who has you do like 4 miles to warm up for a 5K and then do the 5K in Prospect Park while it's really cold out? And I'm like, I love it. It was so difficult. I almost threw up 3 times, but I did it. And my quote unquote statement to my friends was, I'd rather eat glass than go run this loop at 5K pace. And of course, my girlfriend's like, that's kind of dramatic. And I'm like, no, I really would rather eat glass than do this. That's like, I'll do a marathon over a 5K any day. Sorry, I just don't like pushing myself that hard.
Tell us a little bit about the speed work and the hill work, because I think a lot of people, when they think of ultras, they think of just logging big miles. So if you could like tell us what your intensity looks like, I think that'd be rad.
It's definitely not like all long runs. Like my speed work will be, an example of a workout is go warm up for 2 miles, and then you're gonna do 5 sets of 30 seconds all out, recover for 1 minute between. Then you'll do another 5 sets of 1 minute, 5K or tempo pace, and then you're going to, recover for 2 minutes between, and then go do another couple miles for a cool down. So it's just learning how to gauge that level, and I think, or that exertion level. And like when you start the training early in the winter, and as you progress through the warmer months, you start to see those times come down. So people think I'm insane, and I'm like, I set the goal of like every single run is a benchmark, and I like to do better each one. So like if I'm having a proper nutrition plan and I'm sleeping well and I'm not stressed, then I'm able to really hit my numbers. And that's like one of the most fulfilling things when you're in training. And there's like, you see the progression of improvement.
Absolutely. I'm really curious about when it comes to racing. A lot of the events that you have done require a team member or a partner. What do you look for in a person who you sign up for a race like that with? If it's going to be difficult, or like, you're going to be out there and kind of like push to the max, how do you find people to race with?
So Trans Rockies I did alone, although they did have teammates. They did have teams, like 2 people that did them together. When I did Trans Alpines, I went out with a friend that I knew here in Brooklyn, but at the time she actually lived in London. So we met in Germany and raced together. And we learned a lot about each other. We didn't plan to be competitive at that race. And after the first day and we saw we finished in the top 10, we're like, oh no. And everything about it changed. Like, she generally would be, she'd always have me be in front, because emotionally, if I'm in the back, I feel like I'm failing. So I'd have her behind me saying like, pick up the pace, we got to go. Who's behind us? Like time to eat, time to drink. So like if we have to pee, we both do it together. But I mean, it's like you have to go through every checkpoint together. So you can't have one person go faster than the other, but we stayed together for like those 7 days. We were at each other's hips. We finished the race, and it's like, okay, let's go get our bags. And well, actually, after you cross the finish line, we'd find some sort of cold river or water source to ice our legs in, which was like, it was critical, or it was crucial that you did that. for muscle recovery. And then we had to go find our bags, go find a way back to the hotel that somebody booked for us, and change, eat, go to the team or the race briefing, because every day at that race they change the course on us. And they say like, oh, they just add a couple kilometers extra each day, and that's just a bonus for you. I'm like, no, I signed up for a 260 kilometer race, not a 288 kilometer race. So, but it was very challenging, and like we had to go to sleep and we had to wake up in the morning to get breakfast in. So like we, like looking for a teammate, like my sister wants to do Trans-Rock with me. I'm like, when you complete a 50 miler and you go through those highs and lows and you feel confident, you can go through the highs and lows together, then we can talk about racing together. But it's really important you pick somebody who, understands what that pain is like, what it's like to go through those highs and lows. And because you have to navigate one another. Like one day you're going to have a good day, the other day you're going to have a bad day. Like there's a day where my partner had like food poisoning, and then we both got the flu during it, or my sister will tell you is food poisoning. But like when you're having a good day and they're having a bad day, like your job as a teammate is to pull the extra weight and get them to the finish line, because you have to, especially when you're competitive.
When we were preparing for this, Molly told me that you often take a whole pizza with you on your long runs.
I do. I think.
Yeah, tell us about just the logistics of that. How do you pack it? How do you consume it? Asking for a friend.
How can Chris do this? Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gone through I've had two coaches for ultra running. I was with Michelle Yates with Rugged Running for a while, and then I moved on to Elizabeth Azey with Mountain Peak Fitness. But like one thing that's very consistent is my desire and ability to eat pizza while doing ultra events. So I do a margarita pizza. Specifically, it's Neapolitan, which means it's wood fired. It's about 400 calories for the whole pie. The way I see it, it's a perfect balance of carbohydrates, protein, sugars, and the three, they say all three of them: carbohydrates, sugars, and protein. Yeah. So, but for the 400 calories, I know, and with the cheese, it's a fresh mozzarella, so it's not a processed cheese with a lot of oil in it, so it's easier on your body. But like I found, I was like, oh, this is like 125 calories a slice. That's like a gel. I mean, which would you rather have, an energy gel or a slice of pizza? But so like if you've been running for 5 hours, you're really hungry for something substantial. So for me, it's pizza. So I take each of the slices, I wrap them in foil, and then I just tuck them in my hydration pack in the back. If it's going to be a warm day, I'll put it in a pack with a little bit of an ice pack. But otherwise, that's how you run with it. And then, when you're racing an ultra event, it's not like when you're at a triathlon and you go into an aid station and you can't stop the bike really. And they're like, here, throw me a bottle. Good. Here's my other one. Here it's like you go into the aid station, you're going to fill everything up and you're going to stop and eat. And like, I'm going to enjoy the woods and have some pizza in a beautiful place. But I remember when I did Vermont and I got pulled at mile 76, I cried. And then I just opened my backpack up in the DNF. So actually pull the athletes off the course. I was in this van. I'd been running for 22 hours and was just done. I missed that cutoff by 5 minutes, and that's like heartbreaking. But I pulled the pizza out of my bag and I just started eating pizza. And everyone else was like, did she just pull pizza out of her bag? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Why not? It's like, but so here's the thing you didn't ask about, Chris. What pizza should you eat after a race?
All right, tell us.
Yeah, you need to know.
Chicago deep dish pizza.
Really?
Do not judge me. I'm a New Yorker.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
So
I'm interested.
Deep dish pizza has about 15 grams of protein per slice. And you know how important protein is for muscle recovery? It's perfect. They're using a low moisture whole milk cheese, which is packed with protein. There's fat in there too. You need a little bit of all of that. But so there's a race we do in Pennsylvania that like we'll finish a 50 miler. And then I'm like, all right, we're going to go to this like really ghetto part of town where they have really good deep dish pizza. And I'm just like, I'm like a hog in heaven. I'm like, yes, deep dish pizza. So like, yeah, if you can't get yourself a burger and there's deep dish pizza, go for it.
This is incredibly valuable information that we're getting from you, Miriam. All of our athletes out there, Chicago deep dish pizza, order from your coaches. So we only have a couple minutes left before we have to tell everybody to go feed their plants and water their cats or whatever it is they're up to. But why don't you tell us how we can support the work that you're doing to get free pizza to people who need it in Brooklyn?
Awesome. So if you go on Instagram, my handle, you can find me by my name, which is Miriam Weiskind, spelled we as kind, or you can find me at the ZA Report. So the Z as in zoo, ZA Report. So the ZA Report. But you can follow along there. If you'd like to donate to Pay Pies Forward, you can do that via Venmo right now. There will be a Kickstarter going up. But right now I'm working to go into a commercial space and eventually fundraise enough money to open my own freestanding window in Brooklyn, because I think having a full pizzeria, not necessarily, let's just have a window that you can walk up to and get your pizza on the go, just like what I'm doing right now.
I love that idea.
But yeah, follow along. Yeah. And then like, if you guys are out West, like, go into a pizzeria and be like, again, if you don't have to donate to me, but you can go to a pizzeria and say, can I pay a pie forward, and just say, I'd like to pay for somebody's pizza that might not be able to afford pizza, or somebody that may have lost their job, having a hard time. Like, just ask, like, you can donate like $20 and probably give someone 2 pizzas to make their life a little bit easier. But I always say, like, the best thing you can do to support this cause is do something that's going to make someone's life a little bit easier. Just a kind, a gesture of kindness for them. But if you want to support me, follow me on Instagram. I do 3 live stream bakes a week if you want to learn how to bake pizza and laugh. But also I take donations to help me open up my pizzeria, and also to continue paying Pies Forward, because 30% of the pizza I bake a week does go out for free.
Awesome.
Which is crazy.
That's and people can donate at Miriam-Pizza Lover.
I put it
is the place. Nice.
I put it in chat.
There it is. It's over there in Twitch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Miriam. This has been great catching up with you. I had a text message from Jason who says, hi, we have someone named Big Daddy C 1974 who sends their love. It's been great to get to see your face and to hear about all the awesome work that you're doing. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you. And I hope when I make it back out West racing, that we all can have some slices together.
We are 100% committed to that idea. And we'll be looking you up in Brooklyn.
We could dive too.
Oh, Jason is Big Daddy C. I get it now. Amazing. Jason, hello. This is wonderful. So folks, for those of you who are out there who are our usual folks, and Jason, just so you know, tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, we have yoga with Amy VT. It's going to be amazing. Come back and join us for that, for our Zwift group ride on Thursday morning, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then we have an endurance ride, 90 minutes of fun on Zwift at 8 a.m. on Saturday in the morning. Miriam, it's been awesome talking to you. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys again soon.
Thank you guys for being on.